A politician in Missouri went a little too far in a Facebook post this week, and I'm putting it mildly by saying a little too far. Look at this. Missouri GOP representative wants Confederate monument vandal to be hung from a tall tree. Whoa. So Warren Love is this guy's name, and here's what he said. This is totally against the law. I hope they are found and hung from a tall tree with a long rope. And it says National Veterans Cemetery in Springfield, Missouri. A vandal threw paint on a Confederate statue. Could you imagine that being your response to that? A vandal threw paint on a Confederate statue, which is like the lowest level of vandalism possible. And of all the things to vandalize, a Confederate monument I file under I care the least. But this guy says somebody should be hung from a tall tree with a long rope for doing that. I didn't know the death penalty was the punishment for mild vandalism against, representations of slavery and Jim Crow and fuck the civil rights movement. And for the record, because we covered the story recently and I didn't know it, but I learned it the other week. I'm so fucking naive, I didn't realize it, but did you know the Confederate monuments were mostly put up, 2 time periods is when they were mostly put up. 1, Jim Crow. They were put up during Jim Crow specifically by the white majority as a fuck you to the black population and to let them know, hey, we're still boss around here, okay? Fall in line. You don't believe me? Here's a statue to, the Confederates who fought to keep you enslaved. They were put up during Jim Crow and the civil rights movement. Gee, I wonder why they put up Confederate monuments during the civil rights movement. It was specifically as a fuck you to the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King Jr., and specifically as a fuck you to the people who wanted to end segregation. They wanted to say, no, we're not ending segregation. Here, remember these days? Remember the days when you were slaves? So, knowing the history of it, it's like, whoa, that is fucking dark, man. That's what that is. This guy's saying, let's hang from the tallest tree with the long rope somebody who vandalized the Confederate monument. The real punishment for that is what? Like a fine? Maybe? He's like, no, kill him. Thank you for tipping your hat and letting us know exactly where you stand here. Tipping your hat? Tipping your hand? I don't know what the saying is. And then, okay, the same week as that happened, so we already have one threat of lynching for vandalizing a Confederate statue. Look at this next story. Georgia State GOP representative warns black attorney she'll go missing if she removes Confederate monument. Huh? What? Go missing. Wow. He actually made it even more clear in the post. I mean, he goes on. He says, there's a lot of people who have rednecks around here, and they don't take kindly to this kind of stuff. So you might want to tread easy. Maybe you'll go missing if you keep advocating for this. There's a deep strain of bigotry and racism in the country, and it's been really coming out recently. You know, if you touch that nerve, then there's a giant backlash, and that's what we've seen with the removing of Confederate statues. Sometimes it's through a legislature by legal means, other times it's protesters pulling them down. But the vicious response, has been stunning. I mean, I think it's one thing to say, hey, I prefer keeping them up. If it's somebody who doesn't know the history of them and they just view it as, yeah, whatever, keep it up because it's been up and why go out of our way to take it down? And some people really do believe heritage and not hate, that's what these things stand for. If it's somebody who has that opinion, fine. Totally fine. That's categorically different from people who are threatening fucking lynching over taking them down. But it takes a totally different kind of person to, for example, show up to a protest in favor of keeping these things up. Because you look at the people who show up, it's across the board, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and in the best case scenario, just a white nationalist. So the viciousness of the backlash for what should actually be a pretty mild issue of like, hey, maybe we take down the statues that represent slavery and oppression of black people. That really goes to show you that there is a fervent strain of racism and bigotry still in the country. I don't know what percentage it is. I do think it's a low percentage. It's certainly not a majority. But damn, is it weird to see when it shows, and it shows in this strong a way.